Football coach at Northwestern, Colorado, now part of the Colorado Football Buffaloes flagship radio broadcast. Gary Barnett joins us. He's been on with us a handful of times. He joins us today on 365 Sports. Gary, as you overview college football and how they're expanding the playoff yet again starting next year, how do you view what they're doing or how they're doing it?
Well, first of all, I like what they're doing with the playoff. I was skeptical at first even with a 12-team playoff, but I'll tell you, I think it created great interest among people who normally wouldn't be that interested in a playoff because there was only a couple teams in it. So I think they're playing to the public. I think they're playing to what people want. And so I sort of like the whole 16-team idea. What I don't like is that we're piddling around, paying kids and going through this NIL mess and going through the whole house settlement. And you know what? None of this, it's not going to get cleared up until we make them employees. That's the only way out of the things that most of us don't like about college football right now. But the one thing that we do like is that 16-team playoff. I can tell you that.
Coach, from the coach's perspective, it was funny to hear that, some of the leaders of the SEC thought that like everybody would want the 4 automatic qualifiers. But when coaches do the math, because coaches are far more practical, it's like, well, if I'm one of the 16 best teams, I'm going to get in. So that could be more than 4. I'd rather have that. Do you feel that sometimes these decisions are made too much without the input from coaches?
Well, I think we've always felt that way. It's a tough job for them. I get it, but all along we've had a little say in most of the things that are out there. And I talked to a guy that worked for the NCAA for years, and he says, every rule we have was brought to us by athletic directors or coaches, but mostly by athletic directors. And so, but coaches, I don't know whether because we're not there long enough or we're nobody trusts us or what. We just haven't had the say that we hoped that we might have at times. I'll give you a perfect example. Since 1994, we've been trying to get 5 years of eligibility passed. So it's 5 for 5 rather than dinking around with all this red shirt stuff. And how many years? How many years is that? 30 some odd years that we've been trying to get that through. And it just makes too much sense. So we'll see. They're visiting it again. We'll see what happens. But it's always been looked at by the academic side as not the right thing to do. But in today's world, it's totally the right thing to do. I just hope that they can get a champion for it and get it going.
It's been a little while since we talked to you last. I think it was probably in season at some point. What did you think of the Buffaloes' return to the Big 12 and all that came with that, good and bad?
Legacy is something that is earned over time. From taking on your day-to-day to reaching new peaks. With a signature style, build the life you want to lead. Mountain Khakis' sole pursuit is to create superior apparel designed to stand up to the elements and the test of time.
Well, I think the Big 12 was a great thing. And I think that was perfect for us. It's the most balanced conference that's out there right now. No question about it. There's literally probably 10 teams that could win it. And it's, it creates a lot of interest. So I think it's been good for Colorado. For us getting in there and having the kind of season we had, was a big plus for us. We needed to have it happen here in Boulder. Everybody disappointed in the way we played in the bowl game and the way we played, Kansas, and we had a chance to maybe be better than we ended up. But overall, I think most of the people around here are really excited about the Big 12 and the fact that there's, you're going to have a chance, and there's so many good teams in it that it makes for great competition.
Gary, when you were in the Big 12, there were some alphas. There was the start of what Stoops was about to do at Oklahoma, what Mac Brown was building at Texas. Nebraska was still a part of being a relevant part of the national scene among Kansas State and others. And then what you did in 01 and 02. And how difficult was the conference at that time?
Well, you're right. There were some alphas. Oklahoma became an alpha when we first got in. They weren't, but they became an alpha. We played them my first year in '99. We beat them in Boulder, and then they turned around the next year and won a national championship. So they became an alpha. Texas and A&M were alphas. There's no question. And at the time, you'd have to say Nebraska, although that changed in 2001 or after 2001 season. It was a tough conference. Mike Leach was at Tech. That made it hard. Baylor was a tough out. I felt Missouri was a tough out. It became a tough out. I mean, they moved from the Big 12 and 2 years in a row played for the SEC championship. So it was probably a better conference than what we all got credit for. And I hated to see, the teams that split off. And Colorado was one of them. I wasn't coaching when they split off, but I hated to see them split off because I thought there was really, really a big time conference there. And everybody was mad at Texas and, it's so childish when we look back on it now. But it was a hard conference, no question.
Gary Barnett with us. Colorado coming off. You mentioned the disappointment getting blown out by BYU. A lot of new faces. A player you said you'd never seen anything like him with Travis Hunter, Shedeur, among others. A lot of players drafted. Your thoughts about how they not rebuild by any means, but how Deion moves forward for this year?
Yeah, I think I don't know if anybody knows. Vegas has us at 6.5. After watching all the spring practices, I think that's about right. Based not so much on us, but based on how good everybody else is going to be, I think. I mean, our schedule, we're going to play BYU, Iowa State at home. We've got both the Arizonas. We got Utah. We got Houston. We've got West Virginia this year. And so I just think that you can't duck anybody in this conference. So, we're going to have to play really well. We're going to be a different team than we were last year with Shedeur. The quarterbacks are going to be more, dual threat guys defensively. I don't know that we can sustain what we were able to put together last year. And half of these guys, as you know, I don't even know them. I never saw them play, and we haven't seen them on film yet. So we just have to wait and see what things look like in August.
Coach, obviously, like one of the stories, for Shedeur was this is the first coach when he goes to the Browns that he'll have that's not his dad. For Deion, the other side of that coin is for Deion Sanders, this is the first quarterback he'll have that he didn't make. And what do you think that you'll see differently from Deion as a coach in that there is maybe a lack of comfort with Caden Salter or Juju Lewis that wouldn't be there if they were your kid that you knew from the very first day they were born?
Yeah, Shedeur was really a good player, and he made Deion look pretty good, and so I think they're going to miss him. I know I missed watching him in the spring. I missed watching all the big plays and the fact that he would stay alive and get the ball thrown down the field. This group right now, if it's not open immediately, they're off and running. And I think it's a little harder to call plays. I think it's going to be a little harder on Pat Sherman. But it's going to be interesting to see how Deion adjusts because Shedeur bailed that team out a lot. Now, you can say he held the ball too long, but, he doesn't make most of those plays if he doesn't hold that ball. So it'll be interesting. I'm eager to see it myself.
It's another dip into the past rather than a question about the current, but your thoughts on Eric Bieniemy getting put on the College Football Hall of Fame ballot?
Well, I think he really deserves it. He was a great player, and he's been a great coach as well, although that doesn't merit the Hall of Fame balloting. But he was without question the guy that the spiritual leader of this football team in Colorado for 3 years, and maybe for 4 as a freshman. He was that way. So, I'm a great fan of Eric Bieniemy, and I'm really proud that he's been put on that ballot along with Chris Hudson.
Yeah. We had, I know Cordell Stewart was before you were at Colorado, but we had him on at the Big 12 not media days. They had that big combine up in Frisco. What a personality. You look about great names in Colorado history. What are your thoughts about with Bill McCartney and what he built, which was there was in between when you were there and him having the statue put up outside of Folsom Field?
Yeah, well, I actually had Cordell. I recruited Cordell and had him as a freshman, and so we've remained really good friends for years. But what Bill did was sensational. I mean, it came out of nowhere. He willed it to happen. He created a recruiting standard that's never been met around here. That's been touched. A lot of us have tried, but his standard and the players that he was able to recruit. And I was with him at the time, but he, like I said, he set the standard, and we're all trying to live up to that in some degree. And I think sometimes those statues are a little bit out of place, but I don't think this one's going to be. I think this is perfect.
We had him on at Big 12 Pro Days, and it was one of the most fun interviews I think we've ever done before. He and Mason Crosby together was just an absolute blast. Coach, Jordan Seaton made a comment that I thought was really interesting from a player of this era about the center transferred out, and he said, "Man, this really hurts. You can't really build a brotherhood anymore, particularly along the offensive line. That's a key thing, and that's something that really needs to get better." When you heard that, were you kind of surprised that a player from this era would kind of comment on, man, it's a real bummer that the transfer portal does what it does?
Well, yeah. I mean, especially a guy that's only been here 1 year. And so, but I think of any position, that position demands and creates and enhances that kind of attitude that you've got to have a little brotherhood in there. Those guys are on an island more so than anybody else. And they get more criticism and less credit than anybody on the football team. So they have to have each other to cling on to. So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting comment. I thought it was very intuitive comment, from a guy that isn't old enough to really know all that, but he seemed to know it. And in some ways, that's really good to have somebody that far along at this early part of his career mentally to know exactly what they need to do and hopefully realize what he has to do to play his part in that.
How difficult is it to coach in this day and age, Coach, with the transfer portal, the NIL, there's all sorts of things up in the air. How difficult do you think it is or would be?
Well, of course, I'm not doing it. And I'm seeing it from afar. And so it's speculation on my part. But I think the coaches, most of the coaches that are in it now have grown up in this, and they've got a feel for it, and they know what it takes. The only thing I don't like about it is that the coaches in many ways are they're moving around as much as the players. And so, and you can't blame them. You really can't, because they're just seeking opportunities. But I would have never gone to the Rose Bowl if I didn't have all 9 of my coaches for 5 years. And so, that's the sort of thing you're missing out on, because, they're just becoming gypsies themselves.
Gary, thank you very much. I hope to have you on with us sometime, maybe right before football and a couple of times during the season. We look forward to it. Thank you. Have a great summer.
Thanks, guys. Great being with you.
Gary Barnett.